You know how it is. You save up, you plan, you finally build your dream, and then someone, let's call her Karen, from your HOA, doesn't just want to use your brand new pool. Oh no. She decides, with the audacity of a Roman emperor, that your private pool is actually hers. This isn't some simple misunderstanding, folks. This is a full-blown attempt at aquatic kleptomania. Alright, let me set the scene. For years, I dreamed of having a pool. Not just any old pool, but my own little backyard oasis. A place to escape, kick back, and just enjoy the sunny days. I'm a pretty private person, so the idea of this personal sanctuary was a huge motivator. After a whole lot of hard work and careful saving, the dream finally became a reality. Now, living in an HOA community, well, it has its quirks. And the main quirk in our neighborhood came in a 5'4" package of pure entitlement and frosted blonde hair, who we'll call Brenda, though Karen is definitely her spiritual name. Brenda, a long-standing HOA board member, was notorious for her, let's say, selective enforcement of rules. Your approved shade of beige trash can a bit too close to the curb? Citation. Her overgrown, weed-infested lawn? Oh, that was artistic expression. She had this special talent for making everyone else's life a little more regulated, while she lived by her own set of invisible, ever-changing guidelines. We'd all had our minor run-ins with Brenda over the years, but absolutely nothing could have prepared me for the poolocalypse she was about to unleash. The pool build was an adventure in itself, but when it was finally done, it was perfect. Sparkling turquoise water, a sleek modern design, and surrounded by carefully chosen landscaping that really created a sense of seclusion. I'd invested in comfy lounge chairs, some nice shade umbrellas, and even a small, tasteful privacy fence on one side that was well within HOA guidelines. I triple-checked. Believe me, this wasn't just some hole in the ground filled with water, you know? It was the culmination of years of planning. My own private resort, just steps from my back door. Those first few swims were pure bliss. The cool water on a hot day, the quiet solitude. It was everything I'd hoped for. I'd spent countless hours researching, picking out tiles, and making sure every little detail was just right. This was my sanctuary, a place I'd earned and created for my own peace and enjoyment. Little did I know my peaceful paradise was about to get a very unwelcome, very loud, and very demanding new admirer. It all started pretty subtly, like these things often do. A few days after the pool was filled and I was enjoying a quiet afternoon float, I saw Brenda, Karen, peering over the shared fence line. And I don't mean just a casual glance. This was a full-on, unblinking stare. I gave a polite, if slightly wary, wave. She didn't wave back. Instead, she just nodded slowly, her eyes scanning my entire backyard setup. The next day, while I was skimming leaves, she called over the fence, "That's a rather large pool for just one person, isn't it?" I just smiled and said, "It's perfect for me." But the glint in her eye was, well, unsettling. A few days later, I found a flyer tucked into my mailbox, a generic HOA reminder about community spirit and sharing resources. Though it didn't mention any specifics, it felt targeted. Then came the comments to other neighbors, loud enough for me to overhear while I was gardening. Such a shame to have a lovely feature like that new pool just sitting empty most of the time. Community resources should benefit the community, after all. My blood started to simmer. Community resource? I'd paid for every single drop of water, every tile, every permit. This was my resource, mine alone. The subtlety? Yeah, that didn't last long. About a week into my pool ownership, Brenda approached me as I was getting out of my car. "Good news," she said, with a smile that definitely didn't reach her eyes. "I've been reviewing the HOA bylaws, specifically the sections on shared amenities. And it's quite clear that a new, large recreational installation like your pool falls under the Community Betterment Clause." I blinked. "Brenda," I said, trying to keep my cool, "this is a private pool, on my private property. It's not an HOA amenity." She actually tooted like I was a child who just didn't understand. Now, she said patronizingly. "We all pay our HOA dues, and those dues are for the upkeep and enjoyment of all community features. It's only fair that this new feature is accessible. I was floored. Fair? It's fair that the entire neighborhood gets to use something I personally paid for, maintain, and am liable for. She just waved a dismissive hand. Oh, don't you worry your pretty little head about liability. The HOA's insurance can cover it once we officially designate it as a community access point. We might need to install a more welcoming gate, of course. My polite corrections and explanations that my pool was not, in any way, shape, or form, a community asset were met with this serene, unshakable confidence on her part. She genuinely seemed to believe her own twisted interpretation of the rules, or maybe the rules she was just inventing on the spot. She even mentioned how the HOA guest policies would apply. Residents would need to accompany their guests, of course. As if that was the point I was even arguing. The next phase was direct action. One Saturday afternoon, I heard splashing. I looked out my window to see Brenda, decked out in a truly lurid floral swimsuit, attempting to coach her two grandchildren as they tried to climb my locked pool gate. My jaw just about hit the floor. I marched out there. Brenda, what on earth do you think you're doing? She turned, feigning surprise like she was an Oscar-winning actress. Oh, hello. Just thought the children could use a dip. It's so hot, and your pool looks so inviting. It's locked for a reason, Brenda. It's private. Her face hardened. Now, I told you this is a community pool. We discussed this. You can't just hoard it for yourself. That's against the spirit of the HOA. She then actually tried to argue that my privacy fence was an exclusionary barrier and hinted it might violate some obscure and probably fictitious bylaw. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. Then she started leaving these passive-aggressive notes on my door. Pool schedule for community use TBD. Please ensure gate is unlocked from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. After that, she began telling other neighbors that I was being uncooperative and selfish by not sharing our pool. Some neighbors, who'd also had their own run-ins with Brenda, just rolled their eyes. But a few, who perhaps fancied a free pool pass, started looking at me a bit sideways. The pressure was definitely mounting, and Brenda's entitlement was growing with each passing day. She even had the nerve to ask if I had extra pool towels she could borrow for her guests. Her guests. The absolute peak of this whole insane saga came the following weekend. I was inside, enjoying a rare moment of quiet, when I heard loud music, laughter, and the unmistakable sounds of a full-blown pool party. My heart just sank. I raced to the back window, and there it was, Brenda, holding court on my patio, surrounded by at least a dozen people, her family, some friends, a couple of neighbors I barely knew. They had coolers, inflatables, food spread out on my outdoor table. Someone was even trying to fire up my grill. My brand new, beautiful, private pool was swarming with uninvited guests, led by the queen of entitlement herself. I stormed out there, my voice probably an octave higher than usual. Brenda, what is the meaning of this? Get these people off my property now. She had the gall to look annoyed at my interruption. Oh, for goodness sake, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're just enjoying the community pool. You really need to be more neighborly. I even brought dip. One of her cronies chimed in. Yeah, lighten up. It's a party. I was shaking with anger. This is not a community pool. This is my private property. You are all trespassing. I pointed to my clearly visible no trespassing signs that I'd reluctantly installed after her earlier antics. Brenda actually scoffed. Those signs don't mean anything for a community asset, dear. I'm on the HOA board. I know the rules. She then had the absolute, unmitigated nerve to tell me I was violating HOA noise ordinances by yelling. The gall. She was treating my backyard like a public water park she had exclusive booking rights to. She even started directing people. Kids, shallow end only. Who wants a hot dog once Bob gets the grill going? I felt like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. This wasn't just overstepping. This was a full-scale invasion. Okay, if you're as stunned by this level of HOA delusion as I was, or if you've had your own Karen go completely off the rails, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe the Mirror Moves for more tales of suburban insanity, And please share your own horror stories in the comments below. Seriously, I need to know I'm not alone in this. I'd had enough. Everybody out. Now, I yelled, my voice cracking. I am calling the police. Brenda actually laughed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. They'll side with the HOA. This pool belongs to the community now. That was it. I pulled out my phone and dialed. As I was describing the situation to the dispatcher, a mass trespassing event, orchestrated by an HOA board member, the mood of the party started to shift. Funny how that happens, right? Some of the guests began to look uneasy. The idea of actual police intervention was clearly not part of Brenda's Community Fun Day pitch. When the officers arrived, Brenda immediately tried to play the victim, the benevolent board member just trying to foster community spirit while I was being unreasonable and hostile. She even presented them with a highlighted copy of the HOA bylaws, pointing to vague clauses about common areas and enhancement of community life, conveniently ignoring the fact that my pool was on my deeded, private lot. Luckily, I had my own documentation ready. My property deed, the pool construction permits, photos of my no trespassing signs, and security camera footage from the past few weeks showing her repeated attempts to access my pool and her previous uninvited inspections. The officers listened patiently. Then an older, very no-nonsense sergeant looked straight at Brenda. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This is private property. These people are trespassing. Unless you all want to receive citations, I suggest you vacate the premises immediately." The color drained from Brenda's face. Her entitled smirk completely vanished. Her guests practically stampeded to get out of my yard, grabbing their coolers and deflated flamingos as they went. Brenda tried one last salvo. "But I'm on the HOA board. This is an HOA matter." The sergeant just raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this is a trespassing matter on private property. The HOA has no jurisdiction here to claim this gentleman's pool." He then advised me on how to file for a restraining order if her harassment continued. The HOA president, who arrived after being called by another, more sensible neighbor, looked absolutely mortified by Brenda's actions, especially when I showed him my evidence. He assured me this was not an official HOA stance and that Brenda was way out of line. Brenda was formally warned by both the police and the HOA president about her conduct. She was also, I later learned, facing a review by the rest of the HOA board for abuse of power and misrepresentation of HOA policy, which could lead to her removal from the board. Turns out, selective enforcement can make HOA actions unenforceable, and they knew she'd crossed a major line. The aftermath was quiet, blissfully quiet. Brenda avoided eye contact with me for weeks. The other neighbors were a mix of apologetic and secretly amused, I think. My pool was finally, truly, my private oasis again. I did install a slightly more robust lock on the gate and an extra security camera, just in case. Maybe even a little garden gnome in a tiny security uniform, as a silent, humorous reminder of the whole ordeal. This whole insane episode. It just reaffirmed that clear boundaries, good documentation, and sometimes a call to the authorities are pretty darn necessary when dealing with extreme entitlement. My dream pool was mine, and I wasn't about to let any HOA Karen, no matter how delusional, take it away.